Hello and welcome to the Friday Redzone with the Irish NFL podcast. I am your stand-in host for this new segment, Gordon, and I'm joined by my colleague, Brian O'Leary. Brian, how are you?
I'm good. Good afternoon. Gordon, another weekend in NFL.
Yeah, episode 2 of our brand new segment, the Red Zone, Friday Red Zone, which we, as we said in the last episode, we decided to bring together because we felt we had more to bring. We had more news to tell, and we didn't need Mark Cockrell for this. So, we've left him at home once again. And we're just going to try and run through a few topics every Friday. Some Fridays will be a lot shorter than others. And I think today is one of those days. There's not a huge amount of talking points in the NFL at the moment, but there's a couple. Thursday night football is one to talk about. So I've got 3 major points here I want to throw to you, Brian, and we're going to have a bit of fun today. But before we get into that, obviously, if you're on social media, make sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Irish NFL Pod. And again, pretty much manned by Brian O'Leary on a day-to-day basis. So fire any questions, any feedback you have to him, and he will most definitely return. You are the Twitter master these days, I like to say.
Yeah, I know. I'm learning fast. I'm learning on the fly, Gordon. Yeah.
Exactly, like we all are.
I'm old school, Gordon.
Well, look, the fact that we've gotten you onto technology, Brian, it's always a great start. Okay, we are going to kick this off. Point 1 is talking about Thursday night football. The Packers against the 49ers last night. I don't think anyone's surprised about the result, but I think Aaron Rodgers seemed to have an all-star performance. Looking at some of his stats, 25 completions, 305 yards, and 4 passing touchdowns. How was the game? And take it away.
Well, one of the games at the start of the season, you look at it and go, that's going to be a tough one for the Packers. But because of the 49ers injury crisis, which has just got worse over the past week with Jimmy G and Kittle, their main offensive player, gone for the season, it was inevitable that the Packers were going to win. Whether they were going to win by the score, they did, but I wasn't sure. But certainly Rodgers and Adams in particular, they just were connecting all night long. I think Adams in the end had over 10 catches. Rodgers threw for 4 touchdowns. The game was over before halftime. A very comfortable win for the Packers, who now have the Jags next week. 10 days rest, 6-2, and they'll probably be 7-2 come Sunday week. But 49ers look like a team that are just moving on towards next season already.
Yeah, 6-2 and third in the NFC behind the Bucs and the Seahawks. So, it's a strong start for the Packers. And we were worried after the Buccaneers game of where Aaron Rodgers and this Packers team were heading. But I think last night showed they have the talent. There was obviously the Will Fuller talk of whether or not they would trade for a wide receiver. But they've stuck to the Packer way and said, no, we don't trade and we don't do mid-season trades.
It's funny, for anyone who watched the game last night, there was one incident which I have to refer to. We talked about whether Rodgers trusts the other wide receivers. I'm still not sure he does. There was a very easy third down. He threw it to, I think it's Scandrick. Let someone else pronounce that name. It's a very long name. But he dropped it very easy. A third down play. I think it was 26. And as you're walking off the field, Rodgers gave him that look. The look you just don't want to get, as if like, I can't believe you didn't catch that. I won't be coming back to you at any stage during the game. But he still has these receivers that I'm not sure he's still 100% on. But look, another win to keep on going.
Yeah, no, look, I've one stat anyway I want to read from you. I read from Twitter here that I saw that ESPN put up, and it's about the 49ers. And the stat goes, the 49ers are the 22nd defending conference champion to have a losing record through 9 games. So of the prior 21, only 3, 2018 Eagles, 2015 Seahawks, and the 1995 Chargers rebounded to make the playoffs. Like, we're not talking about the 49ers even contemplating the playoffs, are we?
No, last week I had a funny kind of piece. I felt that all 4 teams could be in play for the playoffs from the West because the new extra seeding in terms of the 7th seed. But last Sunday against the Seahawks, they lost so many players, and I think they're already turning their attention towards the draft. So it'll be interesting to see from 49ers how much they want to win it. 4-5 is a precarious standing to have, and you could go one way. You could potentially look at a wild card. Can't see it. Too many injuries. Be interested to see where they end up now towards the back end of the season.
Perfect, Brian. I suppose the second talking point for today on the Friday Red Zone with the Irish NFL podcast is all to do with our favorite topic of the season, COVID. COVID-19 has struck again, and this time in the shape of fines from the NFL to the Las Vegas Raiders. So Las Vegas Raiders have been fined $500,000. They've been stripped of a 6th round draft pick next season. And it's again due to the Trent Brown COVID positive test at the end of October. They seem to be the one team that seemed to just be flaunting the rules during this pandemic.
Yeah, even on the sideline of games, they haven't been honouring the rules in terms of making sure they're all covered up with face masks. They've also had a few instances where the Raiders have been out about without the face masks at certain promotional events and stuff. So I think it was inevitable that the NFL were going to come after them. But again, this week, just in terms of games, look, at the moment, every game is going ahead. We've had the Texans with a COVID case, the Colts, the Bears. Even last night's game at one stage was in doubt because of the amount of players on both sides that were in COVID situations with running backs testing positive. So it's the new norm, isn't it? It's just we see it coming. The NFL finds a way to get the game played. But to your point, I think to come down on the Raiders because they, in particular, just haven't been following the guidelines. And the players in pre-season were protect us. We want to play football, but you need to show us the rules. Well, the NFL have done what they've asked, but I think the NFL feel that they're not following suit in terms of honouring the rules that they put in place. So it's a 50-50 agreement. They have to be abiding by the rules as well. So, it's a draft pick is crucial. And to see them lose that, kind of, you have to look at that in more detail when you go forward.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting point. I think on the final point on the COVID side, so the NFL have taken $1.2 million so far off the Las Vegas Raiders, who are not one of the most flush teams in the NFL, as we all know, Mark Davis, and how that team is ran. But then also with the Texans kind of closing down their facility this week. And I think it is interesting. Draft picks are going to be vital for next season and season after, with the way the cap is going to be lowered. And I think we saw that as well with the offseason. It's a final point to talk about when it comes to the trades, but there were literally no mid-season trades of significance this season. And I think the reason being is they had to value what a draft pick was worth this season versus other seasons for kind of one-off 8-month or 8-game contracts that they would pay for the likes of a Will Fuller. Exactly. And I think we saw that teams have put more value into future draft picks than anything else.
Yeah, to your point, like next year with the draft, with the cap supposed to be reduced, we don't have a clear understanding what that entails in terms of what's going to be landing on. So I suppose teams are going to be looking to start losing draft picks because they may find themselves having to let go of players that they may not have thought they would be because obviously the cap situation next year. So yeah, it wasn't anything major. I think you touched on again, Fuller. That was the one that everybody expected. Speculation was he go to the Packers. Packers wouldn't keep up what they wanted him. They wanted a tour. They weren't willing to do that. Nothing major. So we move on. Everybody has the same teams going into week 9, and that's it for the rest of the season.
All right, Brian, we're going to round out this Friday NFL Red Zone with the Irish NFL podcast with a bit of fun. We're going to look at our favorite topic, NFL quarterbacks, and a couple that we think potentially might be on the hot seat for their starting position. And it'd be great to get your opinion and input in a few of them. To kick it off, we are going to start with, as he's known in some circles, Big Dick Nick Foles in Chicago Bears, who stepped in for Mitch Trubisky as supposedly the savior. Has been struggling since he has come in with the starting position. And there have been some calls from some pundits to bring back Trubisky. Is Nick Foles on the hot seat?
No, he's not on the hot seat. He should be, but he's not, because I just don't feel that they trust Mr. Trubisky to come in and win a game. I also think Trubisky has been ruled out for a couple of weeks. That's only recently come about. So he has an injury pretty much on the back of one play in which he went into the game last weekend. But even if Trubisky was fit, I don't think they would make that change. I think they're just going to run with Foles, see how they get on. Hopefully they can manage those wins that they were getting when the people didn't expect them to win and somehow sneak a wild card. But no, I think he'll last the season.
Well, look, to finish it off with the Chicago Bears, do we think either of those quarterbacks will be the starting quarterback next season for the Bears?
They'll tear it apart and both of them are gone. And early days, but I would suggest they'll be going after someone like Sam Darnold, who potentially could be out in New York, because I think the Bears, because they will finish with a reasonably good record, albeit the bad season that they're having, they won't be in the play for a quarterback in the draft, and that leaves them in a situation where they'll have to look elsewhere. And there might be a few quarterbacks that are on the free agency wire come March, and maybe some who are just not getting run out of town. If the Jets, like Lawrence, for example, so something along those lines, I think the Bears will be in play for a quarterback.
Okay, I'm going to move on to one here now that I already know your answer, but I'm going to throw it to you anyway. Mr. Drew Lock. Is Drew Lock of the Denver Broncos on the hot seat for this season for his starting position?
Hot seat. He's just hot. Did I see that fourth quarter from him last week? No, absolutely not. Yeah, there's been a bit of kind of a couple of stories here and there that the Broncos are saying now maybe he's not the right guy. No, I still believe he's the right guy for the Broncos. And A great fourth quarter come back last week showed exactly what he can do, and I think it's just a case of him keeping the consistency going, and maybe they'll win this weekend against the Falcons because people can beat the Falcons these days. And no, I think he's good to go. I think he'll be there for the long term.
Okay, and then moving on to the good old Cleveland Browns and Mr. Baker Mayfield, who with Stefanski in as head coach has probably hidden some of the faults that Mayfield has as a quarterback this season at times, and again hasn't had to overly rely on him. But Mayfield came in with a lot of fandom when he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns as the savior, as finally the Browns doing the right thing. But again, he has not looked like the potential franchise quarterback that many would have thought he was.
This is a difficult one. This one I actually don't. I'm very unsure of. I don't know how they're going to go because you've got a situation with the head coach. But I think next year, it's his second year with Mayfield, that he can bring him on and get him up to speed on this offense. But it's a precarious one. They just don't know. I think it depends if the Browns make the playoffs or not, because they still are in a good position to go make a run at the playoffs. And I think if they did, Mayfield would get another year. Where if they didn't, with the potential they have an offense and having had a good start to the season, I think they might look elsewhere. But again, it depends where they finish. Similar situation to the Bears. They might have an option to go after the quarterback in the draft, and they might have to look elsewhere in free agency or potentially do a trade with someone else if they feel Mayfield is to be moved on. It's one that's very tricky to tell.
Yeah, I think if OBJ is moved on in the off season, and who comes in to replace Baker Mayfield is the big question. And like again, who we don't know who will be on the trading block come the off season, who will be free agents, etc. So it's an interesting one. I think the Browns would like to think that they have a quarterback. He just may not be as good as everyone thought he was initially, which again, it's been proven you don't need to have an all-star quarterback. If you can win a Super Bowl with Nick Foles, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
So it is possible.
Yeah.
Final two exactly. Final two quarterbacks I want to run through, and one is starting with Minshew Magic down in the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is out at the moment, injured with a fractured thumb or a pulled thumb or something anyway.
Yeah.
But like again, he came in as a late round pick when he got into the starting position last season, and he's performed well at times. There have been issues, and people have called out that maybe he doesn't have the deep ball threat that is needed at the elite level. But the Jags don't really have many other options, as in they're starting a quarterback this weekend who none of us have ever heard of. So, is Minshew in the hot seat? Maybe not right now, but even for this offseason, is he the starting quarterback next season?
Hot seat in terms of whether he'll be the quarterback next year, don't see it happen. I think the Jags will certainly be up there in the draft selections. Looking for a quarterback, there's 3 or 4 quarterbacks that are being rated as definitely coming out in the top 10 in terms of the picks. The Jags will be in play there. Don't see Minshew being there next year. If he is back up, and even if he gets traded back up somewhere else. So the hot seat isn't there. I think the seat has come and gone. I don't think he'll be there next year.
Okay, interesting. And we're going to finish off with the good old Patriots. Our favorite team to discuss when Mark is not around. Cam Newton, starting quarterback for the New England Patriots at the moment, came out like a shot out of the blocks at the start of the season with some great performances. We all thought suddenly, Jesus, good old Bill Belichick has done it again. But realistically, is he going to keep his position over Stidham for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think they'll run him for the rest of the season. Kind of get the impression already that the Belichick and the Patriots are looking towards the future and potentially someone in the draft, or again, same situation. They might try to pick a trade, but don't see Cam being there next year. Don't think he's the player he was. I hoped he was. I was looking forward to seeing him play for the Patriots this season. He's only thrown for over 170 yards in one game, which is a way to Seattle. Seattle are allowing every quarterback to throw in some stuff. You look at that, you take that into consideration. He hasn't done really well. Got a good game last week against the Bills, but just don't think he's a long-term answer. So I think they will run him this season, then move him on after that.
So I think out of all the quarterbacks we've kind of looked at, really the only one that we potentially see staying in play for next season is probably Drew Lock, who I know you're high up on.
Yeah.
And I think the Baker Mayfield one is probably leaning towards Baker Mayfield still being the starting quarterback next season, just due to, I suppose, lack of options. But I think we will probably see Cam Newton, Gardner Minshew, and Nick Foles probably all moved on next season.
The one thing for Cam is, where does he go from here? Because a lot of people thought he might find himself doing well at the Patriots and get a contract for 2 or 3 years potentially. But if he does move on, not sure who would take another chance on him in terms of making their starter. So look, we'll wait and see.
Perfect. All right, Brian, that is another Friday Redzone episode 2 with the Irish NFL podcast. So we have gone through everything there. And as always, please check us out on our social media channels. You'll find us on Twitter and Facebook. You'll also find last week's episode looking ahead to this weekend's action on Spotify. Pretty much anywhere you find your podcast, you will find the Irish NFL version of it. So please check us out, give us a review, send any comments you have. And yeah, we will look forward to chatting to you all next Friday. Have a good day.
Yeah, have a good weekend. Thank you.